Crystal Gayle's journey was never just about music. It was about the alchemy of transforming pain into beauty, the way a melody can carry both heartbreak and hope in the same breath. And as she matured into the artist the world came to revere, every note she sang became infused with the memory of her childhood struggles, the early loss of her father, the constant economic uncertainty that shaped her perspective on life, and the quiet courage she learned from her mother, Clara, who worked tirelessly to keep 8 children fed, clothed, and taught the dignity of resilience. And it was within that crucible of hardship that Crystal developed the kind of emotional depth that allowed her to connect with listeners on a level beyond mere entertainment, because she sang not just with her vocal cords, but with her entire being, embodying stories that were universal yet deeply personal. And as she navigated the music industry, she discovered that success required more than talent. It required strategic awareness, emotional intelligence, and a steadfast refusal to compromise the essence of who she was. And so, when she stepped onto the stages of the Grand Ole Opry, Carnegie Hall, and international venues in London, Tokyo, and Sydney, her presence carried not just elegance, but the weight of lived experience, a humility that made audiences feel both awe and intimacy simultaneously. And while her contemporaries often sought to dominate with forceful voices and theatricality, Crystal's approach was radically different, relying on subtlety, nuance, and the magnetic power of a voice that seemed to float like mist, soft yet unshakable, intimate yet expansive. And this signature style did more than entertain. It redefined what female vocalists could achieve in country and pop music, showing that gentleness could be as compelling as bravado, that refinement could rival rawness, and that a connection forged with authenticity could endure longer than any chart-topping hit. And indeed endure it did, because decades later listeners still find solace in the notes of "Don't It Make My Brown Eyes Blue," hearing in those brown eyes the echoes of every struggle she ever faced, every fear she overcame, and every moment of triumph she quietly celebrated. And beyond the hits, beyond the awards, beyond the global tours, Crystal remained devoted to her private life with Bill Gatsinos, the steadfast partner who supported her from high school into her mature years, serving as manager, confidant, and anchor, a constant presence who ensured that her artistry remained unburdened by the chaos of business, fame, and public scrutiny. And together they built a home that was more sanctuary than a state, filled with the simple rhythms of family life, the laughter of children, the quiet of music practiced in solitude, and the deep unspoken satisfaction of living in alignment with values that mattered far more than fleeting fame. And as Crystal's children, Catherine and Christos, grew, they became witnesses to a model of balanced life rarely seen in show business, absorbing lessons in humility, respect, and the joys of creativity nurtured in a loving environment. And when Christos eventually collaborated with his mother on her 2019 album, You Don't Know Me, it represented not only a musical achievement, but the culmination of a life lived with intentionality, the passing of knowledge, the interweaving of familial bonds, and the continuation of a legacy that prioritized depth and authenticity over spectacle. And yet, even amidst these personal triumphs, Kristen Crystal never ceased to contend with the subtle griefs that shaped her, from early childhood deprivation to the lingering shadow of a sister whose achievements initially defined the way the world saw her, to the eventual loss of loved ones whose absence created invisible scars, all of which she went to her art with a sensitivity few artists ever achieve, turning sorrow into solace, absence into empathy, and experience into voice. And this extraordinary alchemy is what allowed her to rise up, the ephemeral nature of fame, creating a connection with audiences that was intimate and enduring. And as the years passed, she proved that her impact was not merely in the hits or the awards, but in the quiet influence she exerted on the genre itself, transforming Nashville from a bastion of rigid country tradition into a space where crossover experimentation and soft sophistication could thrive. And artists from Shania Twain to Faith Hill to Trisha Yearwood have cited her influence, recognizing in her a trailblazer whose subtle yet profound shifts opened doors for generations of performers, demonstrating that courage and artistry is as much about restraint as it is about innovation, as much about listening to one's inner voice as responding to the pressures of the industry. And through it all, Crystal maintained the personal integrity that had guided her from childhood: humility, gentleness, and the knowledge that true artistry comes from the heart rather than the marketplace. And it is this dual mastery of personal and professional life that sets her apart as not just a singer, but as an enduring figure of grace, a quiet revolution and a loud world, and a living example of the power of authenticity. Because while she may no longer tour incessantly or appear on every broadcast, her legacy continues to ripple across decades, inspiring artists, comforting listeners, and offering proof that one can achieve global impact while remaining tender, grounded, and committed to one's values. And even today, when she occasionally steps onto a stage in Tennessee, her presence reminds audiences that excellence does not require volume, that mastery does not demand flamboyance, and that the resonance of a life well lived can be heard as clearly in silence as it can in song. And in this way, Crystal Gayle embodies a rare synthesis of resilience and softness, ambition and humility, global recognition and intimate domesticity, creating a narrative of a life in which the extraordinary is achieved not through force or scandal, but through the patient, persistent cultivation of talent, character, and heart. And it is precisely this combination, her ethereal voice, her meticulously honed craft, her grounding in family and values, and her ability to translate experience into universal emotion that ensures her place not only in the annals of country music history, but in the hearts of listeners who have found in her songs a mirror for their own joys, sorrows, and quiet moments of reflection. And as we reflect on the arc of her life, from a small Kentucky town to the grand stages of the world, from poverty to stardom, from the shadow of a sibling to the fullness of her own artistry, we see a story that is not simply about fame or talent, but about the relentless pursuit of authenticity, the courage to define oneself in the face of comparison, and the enduring power of gentleness as a force that shapes culture, touches lives, and remains timeless. And as the sun sets over her home in Tennessee, over the garden she tends, the piano she plays, and the family she cherishes, Crystal Gayle stands as a living testament to the notion that music is a vessel for both personal and communal memory, a bridge between generations, a balm for hearts, and a declaration that the quiet, deliberate cultivation of one's gifts, when aligned with integrity and love, leaves a mark that resonates far beyond the immediate applause, far beyond the fleeting charts, far beyond the temporary glare of fame. And it is this profound resonance that defines her legacy,